watch this video, I want to give a little disclaimer. If anything that I say, you automatically think that I'm crazy or a conspiracy theorist, I want you to know that those are certain words that have been programmed into our brains to immediately think to discredit everything I'm about to tell you. Also, while trying to film this video, the weirdest things have been happening. My phone in the middle of filming this has said things like, it just like completely shut down, and I'll put on the screen what it says. It's like, your phone is too hot, temperature overload, like you can't do any more on your phone until your phone cools down. I'm like, I'm in air conditioning. My phone's never done that before, like not even outside when it's super hot and I'm using it to film a ton. So just like weird stuff. And then also like when I was researching things and I was like watching a bunch of videos, after like a couple of videos into my research, like I would click on a video that had to do with what we're getting ready to talk about, and it would like pull up a completely different video about something totally irrelevant to what I was searching. Almost as if there's some sort of technology that is making it hard for us to figure out this information. And I feel like soon they're gonna completely wipe it out. And we know this because they've been talking about these cyber attacks. We had one the other day that like literally everything was wiped out, like planes were down, EMS, like 911, all these things like just completely shut down from a cyber attack. So I feel like they have the control to be able to wipe out like whatever they don't want us to see and know. So I'm trying to get this information out as quickly as I can before something like that happens. So make sure to watch and make sure to try to save this video if you can, or share it to your phone, like text yourself with it, save it, download it, whatever you can do, because I can probably guarantee this video is gonna get taken down eventually. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Hey you guys, I know that this is not like my typical vlog type video, but I can't put this up on my main channel because they have completely blacklisted me. With over 1 million subscribers and I put a video out and it gets like 1,000 or 2,000 views, it just won't reach anybody. And I feel like this video is important, especially with everything that's been going on lately. And I want you to know that if you have no idea what I'm talking about, and we're gonna get into like CIA and how the government and the CIA has been brainwashing us, manipulating us through the news and the media, social media, songs, movies, everything that you can think of. And if you are thinking, Shannon, you're crazy, I promise you, I am not. This is like documented evidence that I recently found out about and literally flipped my world upside down, because I had seen for years like people talking about like Operation Mockingbird or MK Ultra or like the New World Order, and I thought they were just like Looney Tunes, you know, that were like conspiracy theorists. And it wasn't until recently that I started reading some books that I'm doing for homeschool for my kids that made me start to kind of question what was being taught in school, and that maybe some of it was not true. And then again, I would go back to like, no, that's like crazy, you know? And I want everyone to know, like, I grew up in a very like liberal, when I say liberal, I mean like my parents knew that I did porn, you know, like they very much believed in our government and thought that they're there to help us. And, you know, I was sent to like sent away to like a government state school. You know this, I've talked about this in my books, which have been banned, by the way. And that kind of should tell you something. So Amazon has actually banned my first book, Story of Shannon Rose, Part 1. They have it available on audiobook, but the paperback is not available. Like you type into Amazon, The Story of Shannon Rose Part 1, it'll come up as the audiobook. And then if you try to buy the paperback, it'll only come up as like used, or like other third party, like people that I have no affiliation with at all, selling new books of mine. So like, I don't know how legally they're allowed to do that, but yeah, like so I have to have like a whole new thing that I've had to sell my book on, and I'll put all the links below for you guys. But yeah, and even with my second book, like that I put up, I had to do like a separate link. So all those like 5-star reviews on my books, The Story Shannon Rose Part 2, again, completely like they've blacklisted it and blocked it on Amazon so that the ones that you see, it says like, you know, like it's not available, or like see all buying options, you know, and it's like used books. I still have Part 2 up there. I don't know if they know it or not, but I had to do like a separate link and re-upload it. So now there's like no reviews on it. So I'm trying to be like, you know, anyway, I also have both of them that are not on Amazon. I know people, it's very easy to use Amazon, and so people like that. But if you do want to get my books in a paperback form, I will link those links down below. And again, the audiobook's still available on Amazon for now. So go get them while you can until they freaking ban them again. Okay. The reason that I want to talk to you guys about this is because I feel like people know about it but are not caring, and there's a reason why. It's because we've literally been brainwashed. And you might be thinking like you're not brainwashed, or like you're crazy, and none of this is true. And if you're thinking that right now, I want you to know you are the most brainwashed, because they literally put things, and if you don't believe me, I'm going to show all the proof and evidence in this video. And I really believe that it might get taken down. I know there's a lot of videos out there, especially like on TikTok, about these things, but for some reason, I feel like not that I'm special, because I'm not, but I feel like I am, like I get blacklisted pretty easily. When I was posting all this stuff about like my past in the adult industry and how I escorted and all these horrible things like I did, YouTube never took that down. Like it's still all up there. And I got millions of views on all of that. But all of a sudden I start talking about different things, and now I have no views and I've been blacklisted. So that I feel like should tell you something, right? All right, let's get into I'm gonna talk about two things today, and this is gonna be a long video. So I'm gonna put part 1 here, and then part 2 I'm gonna put up on Patreon, because I know they'll take the part 2 down, because it talks about some really, really bad stuff that is just not, for one, not appropriate for YouTube, in case, like, even if I put it over 18, they make it so that it doesn't, like, people don't see it, right? And I really want people to see these videos, because I feel like the truth needs to get out there. This is really important. But I'll just let you know, for part 2, it talks about as young as 1-year-olds this is stuff that the government was doing to kids, like behind the scenes. We're doing testing and experiments on like as young as 6 months old and 1 year old of like things that would be considered sexual molestation and a lot of different things. And if you want to know a little bit on your own and you don't want to sign up for Patreon, just Google Kinsey and somebody with the last name of Money and go do your rabbit hole digging, because you will be sickened. It's disgusting. I honestly was so appalled and disgusted by what I found that like I couldn't be quiet about it. Do you know what I mean? Like when you find out something and you're like, I can't be quiet about this. I literally just did a video on my Patreon, again, something that's not very appropriate for YouTube, which I put over there for a reason, about how I used to go party at this house that was like the party house in high school when I was in the 9th grade, and how like all these really bad things happened. And the dad of my friend at the time, Julie, was a retired CIA agent, and all of like the really horrific, like dark things that happened there and went on, and how all of us that saw it never said anything or never did anything. Why? Why did we not do that? Because the dad used certain mind control, I don't know what you call it. I know this sounds crazy, but I promise you, like, I'm not crazy, to make us forget like the stuff that had happened. And so I think that right now, what's everything that's going on in like the media and like all the news channels, I'm gonna put this clip here, and you might have seen this before, maybe you haven't, but this is a definition. This is like the definition of Operation Mockingbird.
It has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these stories simply aren't true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control.
Okay, so what you just saw was literally all the news channels, right? Even like the ones that you think are against each other, like CNN and Fox, all of them repeating the same script. This is part of what they called Operation Mockingbird. Again, this is all documented. You can Google all of this and see literal, I'll put right here, like the CIA, like documents, like talking about what they were doing. And there are so many of these. You would be shocked at how many things are going on in our government that are top secret behind our back that is messing with us, like in the worst ways. They are doing some horrible things, and there's a reason for all of it, and there's obviously like people behind this. The best way to describe like everything going on is there's like the television, right? And if you put it out, it spells tell, T-E-L-L, and then vision, vision. Tell-a-vision is literally what it's called. Like they're telling us what it is. It's a TV program. It is programming you. Like they're literally telling us what they're doing, and we're just letting it happen. Why? I can tell you why. Is because they want us to do certain things. They want us to buy certain things. They want us to believe certain things. They want to control the masses. And the way that they do that is with mind control. And the government has been doing this and doing experiments and researching from a very long time ago. So they said that Operation Mockingbird was closed down. Huge lie. Not true. Still alive and well. It just might be under a different name. But we can see this in the media today.
There's been a strong reaction to the raid on extremist and QAnon-related forums.
Sources say there's been a strong reaction to the raid on extremist and QAnon-related forums.
Sources also telling ABC News there's been a strong reaction from some extreme groups online, including QAnon and other groups.
There's been a strong reaction to the raid on extremist and
QAnon-related forums,
including those that were active before January 6th.
Including those that were active prior to January 6th.
including those that were active prior to January 6th.
Americans had enough of geriatric presidents.
You know, that's sort of a strange question to ask, because some people think, yes, we need to go to someone much younger. But the fact is that Trump came out at this point announcing his candidacy because he knew and he wanted to test who was going to be against him. And that is part of why we have this corrupt media. You could go to Wikipedia and find Operation Mockingbird, that the CIA has been in there forever. Then Obama repealed the 1948 Smith-Mundt Act, which then permitted propaganda to be in broadcasting. It no longer said that it had to be credible. And so when he came out and said fake news, he warned us at the end of his speech that it is going to be very hard. The establishment, the media, the globalists are all going to come after. They're going to try to intimidate. But he needed to smoke him out. And guess what happened? The next day, Congress on the Democrat side wanted to create a law that he couldn't run. Then what happened was the Republicans came out and said they were going to investigate Hunter Biden. And Friday, the Department of Justice, AG, I'd like to forget his name, but what did he do? He launched an investigation, and he put the most corrupt prosecutor who hates Trump on it. Let me go back to you saying about Trump coming across as a victim. I'm sorry that you interpreted it that way, because that's not really it. And I really want people to understand that they need to go to other sources, because the media will not tell you about his successes. They will not tell you about anything that he does positively. They'll not tell you about his executive orders, 13848. They won't tell you about some of the other articles that he did. They won't tell you about the devolution, continuity of government plan that he put in. The reason that his Mar-a-Lago was seized upon was that they really wanted to get the PEDS, the Presidential Emergency Act document, which is only what Trump knows and the military, that he had to put in place, because before he left, he declared 2 national emergencies. And you know what? Biden hasn't reversed that. Biden has signed on to 3 of his executive orders to continue them going. So we have some very fascinating things that are going to come out in the next 60 to 90 days.
Okay, so now you're seeing what the media wants us to believe. You guys, I'm telling you right now, you cannot believe or trust anything from the news outlets. They're paid for journalists, right? Like all of these networks, the journalists, all of these people are on like the CIA's payroll. And then who is paying the CIA? The elites. Who are the elites? It's like, you know, all of these people that you've probably heard their names before, like Klaus Schwab, who is in charge of WEF, the World Economic Fund or whatever it's called. And he talks about how you will own nothing and be happy. Like they want to control everything. They want to depopulate. So that's a big thing. They want to get rid of us. And why do they want to do that? Because they want to take over the world, right? Not just the United States. They want to take over the whole world. And they are accomplishing this. Like they are doing it. And we are just letting it happen. And they have all these different things, and there are so many different things that the government is doing that we know about, like COVID-19, what is another one? There's so many of them, like I can't even think of it. But let's talk about Project Mockingbird, because I feel like, or Operation Mockingbird has been called. I'm gonna put some videos in here to kind of help explain what it is and what they've been doing and have gotten away with.
So in 1973, during the Church Committee hearings, we learned that the CIA had a program called Operation Mockingbird, where they had at least 400 members, leading members of the United States Press Corps, from the New York Times, the Washington Post, ABC, CBS, NBC, etc., who were secretly working for the agency and steering news coverage to support CIA priorities.
You briefed the press, did you not, when you were there? Well, I had several jobs. One of my jobs was that of analyst. I also was an interrogator and indeed briefed the press when we, the CIA, wanted to circulate disinformation on a particular issue. Disinformation is not necessarily a lie. It may be a half-truth. And we would pick out a journalist. I would go do the briefing and hope that he would put the information in print. For instance, if we wanted to get across to the American public that the North Vietnamese were building up their force structure in South Vietnam, I would go to a journalist and advise him that in the past 6 months, X number of North Vietnamese forces had come down the Ho Chi Minh Trail system through southern Laos. Now, there is no way a journalist can check that information. So either he goes with the information or he doesn't, and ordinarily or usually the journalist would go with it because it looked like some kind of exclusive. And I would say our percentage planning that kind of data was 70 to 80%. The correspondents we targeted were those who had terrific influence.
And they agreed at that time to disband Operation Mockingbird in '73. But there's indications they didn't do that, and the CIA today is the biggest funder of journalism around the world. The biggest funder is through USAID. The United States funds journalism in almost every country in the world. You know, it owns newspapers. It has journalists on it, thousands and thousands of journalists on its payroll.
So some of you guys might be thinking like, no, I can think for myself. Like this hasn't happened to me. And I just want to say, if you have ever had any health issues and you've gone to the doctor to try to get help and you've been gaslit, right? I know this has happened to a lot of you guys because this has happened to me, and when it has, and I've talked about it, you guys are like, oh my gosh, this happened to me too. And I hear all these stories from people saying how like the medical community, like you guys are saying that there's something wrong with you, and they're literally telling you that you're fine or it's all in your head. And I know that this is a huge thing, and this is not just happening in the US. I mean, it's mainly here in the US, but it's happening in other places. And you're saying, hey, I don't feel good. And they give you a pill for something. And I am like so guilty of this because I'm ashamed to say that I literally feel like a grandma. I have like a whole huge, like one of those gallon Ziploc bags full of prescription medication that I'm on right now. And that I've been on since I've been in school, since a little girl. I have been heavily medicated from everything from lithium, where I, at like 14 years old, was having to go in every month to get my blood drawn to make sure that I wasn't being poisoned by how much lithium I was being given. I was falling asleep in my spaghetti plate at night after my mom gave me Seroquel. That's how drugged I was from a kid. And then all of these very horrible situations happened, which I won't get into in this video, but again, all documented in my book and in a lot of like my past videos. I talk about this that you can find. But I think the biggest thing is like they want us to be sick and dumbed down. And the whole reason is because they want to depopulate us. And if they can't depopulate us, then they want to make us very easily be able to be controlled so that we do whatever it is that they want. And if you guys have heard about the New World Order, it's basically like a team and circle of like all of the most wealthy people that have the most power and basically run everything, right? Like this is, if you look it up, like BlackRock and Vanguard and all these different like very big companies own majority of the stock and shares in all of these like big companies. And if you look at it, you know, it's like Pfizer, like the like for the food, and then for like the drugs. So food and drug, they're like, if you look at everything in our grocery store, majority of our food and our drugs that are in the pharmacy and that doctors are giving out are owned by like a handful of big companies, right? And you might think that Pfizer is like owned by one person and Kellogg's is owned by another person, but that's not true. In fact, all of these big companies are mostly owned by a handful of very wealthy people that we call the elites that own majority of stock in these companies. So basically they own majority of the company, but it's like under a business name so that it makes it hard for you to know who's controlling everything, right? But like we're smart enough to figure it out. We are like, okay, who are the people that run and own BlackRock? And then we find out who they are. So all these people around the world that are like the most wealthy and powerful people are the ones that are doing this and are behind all of this. So they are paying the CIA. They own the CIA. They own the government. They own everyone and everything that's going on, whether we like it or not. And so that is why it's very difficult for people to believe that this is actually happening and that people are saying this are not crazy. That's what they want, right? They want us to think that anyone that's telling them these things are crazy and it's not true. But they literally tell us what they're doing, right? Even through the television, the thing like schools. Like schools were not meant for kids to like get an education, right? Like that's what we think. That's what I've always thought. Like we're brainwashed from like a young age to believe all of these things. And so how were schools made? Well, Rockefeller was like, I need a nation of workers, not thinkers. So let's put them into these schools and these buildings where they have to get there at a certain time. And then when the bell rings, then they can, you know, go take a break. And then when the bell rings, they have to come back to work and then they do their work. And this is literally training them to get ready to have a job. And this started like because of factory workers, right? Well, now it's just that in like a modern day form. It's the same thing. They're literally using schools to promote and create their own agenda for whatever it is that they want to happen. So they're affecting us through the medicines that we're taking, the food that we're eating. And again, I know at first hand this can sound very crazy and conspiracy-like and that, you know, I've just been reading too much online. But if you really think about it with an open mind and think about, okay, why are so many people having fertility issues? I don't know if you guys know this, but like IVF and like people that are having trouble getting pregnant, there's so many reasons for it, right? We've talked about, well, environmental factors, food, you know, what they're putting in the food now, it's very different from a long time ago. And people are waiting longer because, you know, they're trying to have their careers and they want to be like established. So I'm sure all of those things play into it, but the fact that so many people are having to do IVF or fertility treatments to get pregnant, they're not that old. Like, I remember I was in my 20s when I was trying to get pregnant. My friend Jessica was like early 20s, if not like 19. I don't even know. She was like really young when she was trying to get pregnant, and it took her years, and she ended up having to do fertility treatments. And if you think about this, they are doing this to us on purpose. They are making it so that we have to pay so much money. They're making us sick through the food, so we have to go to the doctor and take pills. And they are feeding us the food, they're feeding us the prescriptions. And then they're also making a ton of money off of us. You know what else is being made a lot of money off of is all of the transgender people having these surgeries from transitioning from a male to a female and vice versa. And they're doing this with like puberty blockers and drugs that literally, we use those same drugs that we're giving kids, literal kids that are young and in a point in their life where they're like, most teenagers going through puberty and feeling lost and like don't belong. And, you know, I remember when I was in high school, there were so many crazy things that I was, you know, thinking at the time. I would never give somebody, everyone's saying they're reversible, these like puberty blockers that they're giving, they're not reversible. It's what they're giving the same drug to these teenage kids that are puberty blockers that they're giving to castrate male like sex offenders. This is crazy, and it's happening and everyone's okay with it. The reason why is because we're freaking brainwashed from all the media telling us that this is okay and normal, and we're just going with it. And there's only a handful of people that like know about this, that are speaking up and telling people, and then everyone's just thinking that we're crazy because that's literally what we've been brainwashed to think. I know this because I was part of it. So I know that I've kind of like touched on a lot of things all over the place because there's just so much information and things that are going on that I feel like, and it all kind of relates into this big circle of stuff going on. And so it's hard to like talk about one thing without like kind of mentioning all the others. But the Operation Mockingbird was like the main thing I wanted to talk about, and you guys now know what that is. And so please, be a free thinker. Think for yourself. Do not let social media and all these other things that you're seeing and hearing about affect the way that you think. I know it's really hard because we've all literally, for as long as we know, have been this way and thought this way. And so we don't know any different. And it's really hard for us to like kind of come out of that. And it feels like taking a blindfold off and being like, oh my gosh, like what has been happening my whole life? So with an open mind, I really encourage you to just do your own research, think for yourself, and then make a decision on how you feel about it. So now we're going to talk about MK Ultra. And this is where things get really, really bad. Unfortunately, we're not gonna be able to talk about that here on YouTube. So if you can and you want to go check it out on Patreon, I will link that down below for you.